Clark Williams. I'm John T. Williams, his older brother. That this picture here was the last picture I had of John T. August 30th, about 2 in the afternoon. He was on his way to come home with us. I wanted to teach him how to carve blind like my grandfather. We grew up seeing him carve that way. And at this moment, he was on his way back to where we were, and this officer stopped him and yelled at him and, hey, 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 4 times, shot him. He died at that moment.
Hey! Hey!
At 4:12 that afternoon, when we heard this, I had to think of what to do with this, the anger, the rage that the people were in at the moment, and hear the thoughts of my grandfather. Can you be that warrior without violence? And it's like 40 years back he asked me this, and to see what they saw happen and hear requesting calm and peace, that the outrage of the city, the anger they had, and I saw this on TV and I had no idea what to think, and I'm like, no, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted to honor my brother as we grew up knowing him in Seattle here as carvers, and to ask for peace and calm, hear that the people heard me, that I'd like to honor my brother as he was as a carver here, and the voices, the drummers came and shared the thought of what I asked for at a time like this. My brother had 4.7 seconds to, the chaos and all this, to see what we asked. I asked for justice, I asked for peace, and here sitting with people in Seattle and sitting with the department, thoughts of my grandfather and how do I do this, and I thought of little things he said, and at the moment, sitting on a turtle watching them, here I'm watching everybody angry, outraged about what they did to my brother, and on this side I'm talking to the Seattle Police Department. How do I say things of peace at a moment like this, to take my brother's life like this? And
What did you ask of the police department?
I asked for justice, peace, to help fix this, because this was morally wrong if you've seen the video of what happened to him, and to have a thought of standing in a storm where I visualized all this, of trying to inject peace at a time like this, and talking with the department, lawyers. How do I go about this? How do I share a thought of where I'm from, as my brother and I as carvers for 100 years here in Seattle, and when this...
And so as a representative of your family, you were dealing with the community, you were dealing with the department, you were dealing with the legal proceedings, the investigations, the inquest, and along with that, you had an idea of a community healing project. How was the Totem Pole project born?
Well, at this moment, when they asked me, the design and a vision of to tell a story of my family for 100 years here, and at the moment I thought how crazy it was, and I said, no, I should walk with this, because it'll tell a story of, from the top of the totem. In 1950, my father was asked to carve a female eagle, and in those days it was always the male eagle, and my dad did it once, and I wanted to share with the city of Seattle of who we are as this version of the eagle he never did again. And below it was, in 1926, was ivory carver was told a story to my grandfather from Alaska to Duwamish River, and in respect to my grandfather, I added the kingfisher and salmon, which my brother was asked at the age of 12, can you carve a totem pole without a pencil? And, that kind of frustrated my brother, but he created the kingfisher and salmon because he was fixated by as the fastest bird on the water, so that's where this was formed. And then the mother raven was stories told to us about my father and grandfather, and we kept adding figures to it, and we showed it to my dad, and he asked, we said, is that good enough? And he said, yes, keep up the good work. You're heading in the right direction, and this is how this design was created, that now it stands at the Seattle Center to say who we are for 100 years here in Seattle. And I thought, what a great way to honor who my brother was instead of reacting violently. How do I say or teach that if this happens? And to me, this was a way to honor my brother as a human being.
And what was the totem pole creation process like for you?
Well, at first I thought it was a challenge, and again I thought of my grandfather, that it's just a bigger stick. At moments of this carving of the totem, I heard a lot of doubt and negative from people. Like, Rick, you're a great artist. Could you carve something like this? And there was times I smiled and bowed and says, you have no idea who you hired. And as more it went on, like at this picture here, I was questioned by a tourist and listening to how authoritative he was, and I smiled and says, well, I'd like to share with you. And we walked up, and I'm demonstrating with my heart and a pocket knife. I want to tell you a story without talking, and that's where this picture comes in, that to say a story totem like this of my family, what we wanted to say, we wanted to share and show you what we're about as carvers. As I'm fond of saying, I'm just a wood carver.
And how did the carving process help you deal with all that was going on the outside?
Well, at first, drawing it was easy and started to carve, but I found more calm and more peace to do something like this, to honor who we are as First People, First Nations. After 100 years, to a log like this to fall in my lap, to tell who we are without reacting violently, to hear what my sons, my daughters, and I did. A normal human being would react like this, and again, I relied on my grandfather's thoughts of how to do what we were about to do.
Did you act alone?
At this point here, we said on the internet that if anybody that's seen the story, what happened to my brother, if they're willing to learn and pick up a knife, a tool that we were teaching to hand carve a totem pole. And as you see here, from youngsters to elders, that all walks of life that can be part of this after hearing what happened to my brother, and as teaching my sons that let's set an example. Let's keep your heart and mind open for this journey we're about to take, and to take that miniature totem to bring it to this, in there we had problems, and I always had to rely on my grandfather's thoughts of how to lead by example and to listen to questions. How can you stay calm through all this? And I see the frustration in some of them, and my comments were, they took something beautiful from my family. Let's give Seattle something just as beautiful back. And to see my sons and daughters, students, to come from everywhere to do this. And my son, Eagle son here, became a teacher and teaching adults to him, and that to teach, come and listen, that what he knows he learned from me, and from my son you could learn the same thing, how truly simple it is to tell a story with a piece of wood. To watch my son's family, relatives to come here, and to thank everybody that was a part of this totem project, share with to Seattle who we are. As,
So when the poll was done,
yes,
what happened?
and at this point, we asked the internet to honor my brother, and let's carry this totem pole traditionally and stand it traditionally and honorably to who my brother was. And that morning, I was in awe of all the people that showed up. That, okay.
How was it raised?
We had a group of people on the 4 points with ropes to angle the totem, and the sticks there, the crosses were to aim it to where it's going to stand, where it stands now. At this moment, I was seeing my grandfather's totem stand at the same time, and that here in the celebration we had tribes from all over to come and honor, sing, celebrate, to share at this moment history of who we are as wood carvers in Seattle.
And what do you hope for now?
Oh, I hope in this here that the people will see and have something to look at in history, that there is peace. You know, I can't judge one man for his mistake. You know, I don't want to learn anger or hate, because that wouldn't have honored my brother. That to have him with a smile there where this plaza's being built to honor who we are as natives of planet Earth.
And we invite all of you to participate by going onto the website at thejtwproject.org and becoming part of the plaza, the contemplative plaza that will be built around this, so everyone from the community can gather and remember the words of Rick and the memory of of John T. Williams, and honor the tradition. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.